So there's a trend going around right now called blank propaganda I'm not falling for, like beauty propaganda I'm not falling for, marriage propaganda I'm not falling for, so on and so forth. And today I thought I would share friendship propaganda that I'm not falling for. Basically like mainstream messages that I receive about friendship that I'm kind of resistant to. Let me know what yours are in the comments. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, friendship propaganda number 1 that I am not falling for is this idea that you need to constantly be in touch to actually be friends with someone, particularly over the phone. There's this idea that like if you're friends with someone, whether you live near them or not, you're kind of expected to always be catching up on the phone. I have lived in so many places. My friends are spread out across the entire world, and I'm not often a person who wants to catch up over the phone. There are exceptions to this, like after a few months, if there's somebody that I'm really close to, I sometimes do feel like, oh, I want to catch up with this person. But for the most part, I feel like if you're close enough friends with somebody, you shouldn't need to be constantly talking for that friendship to stay solid. Some of my closest, oldest friends, we don't talk for like months or sometimes even years at a time. And the next time we reunite, it's like we never parted. And we have even more things to catch up on. It kind of feels like we can go a little bit deeper. Whereas when you're constantly in contact with people, every single week, every single day, I feel like it often stays a little bit more surface level because you don't have that much more to share. Like my grandma, she loves to stay in contact with people over the phone, and she'll often ask me like, oh, Anna, did you talk to this friend? Did you talk to that friend? Like, what are they up to? And most of the time I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I stay very busy. I'm not quite sure. I didn't have time to reach out. And I don't feel like our relationship is any less close because of it. Because I know the next time we're going to reunite, things are just going to go exactly to the way things were. Also, like, how are some of you guys finding the time to always be talking with people? Like, in between a long FaceTime with my parents once a week, calling my grandma every other day, talking to other family members multiple times a week, and everything else that I have going on, I just don't understand where there would be time to do anything if I were to constantly be catching on the phone with everybody that I love. However, I will say that if you care about someone and you know that it's important to them to talk over the phone or to catch up regularly, then I do think it's kind of a bad friend move to not do that. So I do try to sort of invest in that for people who I know it's a love language for. But on the flip side, another piece of propaganda that I am not falling for is this idea that it's okay to completely ghost your friends for weeks or months at a time. Like, even if I'm not always keeping in touch with my friends, I will never not respond to them. But there are people out there who claim they cannot respond to a simple text. I'm sorry, but that's simply not okay, and it's probably not the case. If you had time to brush your teeth today, you have time to answer somebody's text message, and if they're important to you, you're not just going to completely ignore them. So like, don't get me wrong, what I'm advocating for is not ghosting your friends or ignoring them when they do reach out. What I'm saying is you don't need to constantly be in contact, but if someone does contact you, I think it's actually extremely rude and disrespectful and often unkind to completely ignore them. And there are some people out there who literally just say like, oh, this is just what I'm like. I'm sorry, I don't answer my message for 6 months at a time. That's not okay. And I know for me, if I'm being completely honest, when I don't answer a message, it's because that person literally never crosses my mind. Oftentimes because they're just not that important to me. Friendship propaganda number 3 that I'm not falling for. Your loyalty to friends should depend on seniority. Now, this is one that feels like super juvenile, and I guess adults are still following it as adults. But do you remember when you were like a little kid and you would ask someone, hey, like, do you want to be my best friend? And they were like, no, because I've known Claudia since 2nd grade and I've only known you since 3rd grade. So Claudia is actually my best friend. There are adults who literally still think that way, who literally think that if somebody has been friends with them since middle school or high school or college, that they need to be closer with those people or more loyal to those people than friends they've had for less time. And time spent knowing each other or being friends is not always a correlate of closeness or intimacy or vulnerability or safety. By the same token, people often use this idea that like, oh my God, I've known this person for so long to justify why they can't cut that person off, even though that person has hurt them over and over and over again, and their attempts at rectifying the situation have not worked. Friendship is not about seniority. It's not about how long you've been there. This is not the army. This is not 6th grade. Could we please move past that? Friendship propaganda number 4 that I'm not falling for is kind of related to the last one, and that is that you should have like a best friend or like a ranking of your friends. Now, I'm not talking here about like distinguishing between close friends or like acquaintances or people that you don't trust. I think it's okay to have like clusters of people that like you can see like this person's in my immediate circle and this person's a little bit of towards the outskirts. I'm talking about how like if somebody's your friend, you don't have to assign them a ranking comparing them to all of your other friends, right? So like assuming these are all people in your immediate circle, you don't need to say, okay, this is my best friend and this is my next friend and then this is the next one after that. I just feel like that's not a very good way to build relationships. If you see people as falling on a hierarchy, then you're not really appreciating them as human beings. It's a little bit objectifying. Like let's say that 2 of your friends get into a fight, and one of them is somebody that you're closer to than the other. Do you then automatically side with that person even if they were maybe kind of in the wrong in that situation? Because in that case, you're kind of doing the other person dirty, all because you consider this person to be like your best friend or higher up than them in a hierarchy. I don't know, that just doesn't feel right to me. And number 5, friendship propaganda that I'm not falling for is that you need a friend group rather than just having individual friendships. I am kind of the opinion that humanity's worst colors come out in group settings. Groupthink, mob mentalities, in-group, out-group dynamics, scapegoating, all of these tend to happen and to worsen in group settings. I appreciate people, but I tend to do so more on an individual basis. And I tend to prefer talking to people one-on-one just because I'm like shy and because, you know, in group settings, I just feel like the dynamics get so peculiar where everyone kind of like falls into a role that they've been assigned. Like I've had friends who I really love talking to one-on-one, but the second we're in like a group setting, they maybe become a little bit cattier or start to just like show preference for like the higher status people in the group. And it just doesn't feel as fun hanging out with them anymore. So because of that, for the most part, I prefer to talk to people one-on-one rather than in group settings. And I also think that friend groups are grossly overrated. You see all these like friend pictures, friend vacations, but at the end of the day, if you're actually there with those people, you're able to see that there's a lot of toxic dynamics at play. And there's also stuff of value in having a group, a community to belong to, because then when you're vulnerable and in need of support, they all kind of team up to elevate you together, which obviously like brings you up higher than what one person can accomplish on their own. But I just feel like groups don't usually end up teaming together for the greater good. They usually team up to create negativity in the world. And people are generally a lot cooler when you're talking to them one-on-one. What friendship propaganda are you not falling for? Again, I would love to know in the comments down below. Hope this video was interesting, and I'll see you soon.
Tell me what you need, tell me what you need, tell me what you need, tell me.